I have 5 ideas for you if you are looking to pick up a temporary side hustle. Maybe you don't have an emergency fund and that's something you want to build up as soon as possible. Maybe you got yourself into some credit card debt and you want to get out of it instead of paying a bunch of interest. Or maybe you have a big expense coming up later this year or in the next couple of years and you want to proactively save for it rather than going into debt for it. Taking on a temporary side hustle for any of these things is going to help your financial health and it's going to accelerate your progress towards building wealth. Now, there is something I want to point out before we jump into the list. The thing is, if you actually want financial security and you eventually want to build wealth, then I want to emphasize the word temporary. I didn't put that in the title of the video by accident. I want all of you to eventually get out of the habit of always trading your time for money, of relying on your time and energy as the only means for making money. I get it if you're just hustling and grinding right now because you're trying to get your finances in a good place. And I think for most of us, we have to have that phase in life where we're working really hard. But the goal should be to break out of the rat race, not to have to work 80 hours a week forever and burn ourselves out. So use these temporary side hustles to your advantage. Use them to assist you on the path towards financial freedom, and not simply because you want more money to spend, because you want to buy more things. If you keep doing that, it's going to be this endless cycle of burning out, making more, and then spending more. So this list includes side hustles that I have made money on myself, or they're things that I've actually paid people to do. So for those ones, I know that there is a market for them. For each side hustle on the list, I'm going to go through a little scorecard that shows how easy it is to get started, and I'll also estimate how much I think you might be able to make from it. So, number 1 on the list, dog sitting or dog walking. I've hired both of these in the past because I have 2 dogs, and I've also done them myself in the past for extra money. So dog sitting is basically watching a dog for an extended period. Usually this can be a few hours to sometimes several weeks if someone's going out of town. And this can include feeding the dog, walking them, and other basic care while the owner is away. Dog walking, on the other hand, is a much shorter commitment, which involves walking 1 or more dogs, typically for 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes less, and that can either be daily or just as needed. Both of these options have low barriers to entry and they don't require certifications or special training, which is why I think it makes them great options for people who want to start earning extra money as soon as possible. The other thing is dog walking and dog sitting can be pretty flexible in terms of schedules because some people need dog walkers during the workday if you happen to be free during the weekdays, while other people need dog sitters on the weekend while they're out of town. Now, according to the American Veterinary Medical Association, 46% of US households own a dog, meaning there is a consistent market for pet-related services. Obviously, that's half of the population, and not all those people are going to need dog sitters and dog walkers, but that is a very big pool of people to find business from. So let's go through this scorecard, and you can decide if it's something you want to try as your temporary side hustle. So, in terms of skills required to get started, I would say easy. There are minimal skills to get started, primarily if you're responsible and if you're good with animals and you can follow instructions, then you're already set up for success. Equipment to get started. This is also easy. Most equipment is going to be provided by the pet owners themselves, so leashes, food. You typically won't have to bring that yourself. The only requirement on your end is reliable transportation to and from these gigs of dog walking and dog sitting. Time required, I would say intermediate because this is trading your time for money. Dog walking usually requires short time blocks, whereas dog sitting can take up several hours or days. So having flexibility with scheduling is going to be important to manage multiple clients. Next on the scorecard, energy required. This one is actually, I would say, intermediate to hard. Sometimes walking large dogs or really high energy dogs can be physically demanding. Maybe not to everyone, but to some people, so that's why I put intermediate. Plus, commuting to different locations depending on where your clients are is also going to take some energy to get to and from where you gotta be. In terms of financial investment, I would say this is easy. There are typically no upfront costs, so it's a great side hustle you can start with very little financial risk. And finally, on the scorecard, in terms of getting started, I would say intermediate, because building a client base is probably going to be the most challenging part. Pet sitting often requires a high level of trust, so personally, I would start with your personal network. You can post on social media, on Facebook. You can tell your friends and family that you're going to be walking dogs and dog sitting, so they might need you, or they might have friends who might need you. And it always builds in that trust when it's a friend or a friend of a friend. So that's probably the best way to get started. But you can also use online platforms. There are apps like Rover or Wag that will connect you to pet owners in the area. And so while that helps with the marketing and finding of clients, obviously they probably take a cut, I assume. Now let's talk about how much you can make dog sitting or dog walking. This is going to vary significantly based on your location and the exact services you're offering and who your clientele is and how much time you can dedicate to it. But I think you can safely bring in an extra $200 to $1,000 per month with not too much time dedicated to it. So here are some estimates and examples. I looked up dog walking in Los Angeles, which is where I live, and care.com estimates that you can make about $20 an hour. But to be honest, I've seen it much higher, and I've paid much higher than that. I've seen more like $25 to $30 for not even an hour walk, like a half-hour walk. And you can also charge a higher premium if you are walking multiple dogs. So do a little bit of math. Let's say you walk 5 different dogs, $30 each, twice a week. That can bring $300 every week, or $1,200 monthly if you have that regular clientele. When it comes to dog sitting, overnight stays can be $50 to $100 per night, and it really just depends on the market you're in and what kind of services you're providing. But I know for a fact that in my past, and this was years ago, so I'm sure it's more now, but I've gotten paid $200 to $300 to dog sit and house sit for a weekend. There was also one time that I watched 2 dogs for a week as a favor, and they ended up giving me a $500 gift card. So there are also opportunities for that. It's really just finding the right people because, people love their animals. So if they have the means and they need your help because they're busy working or traveling, pet owners are typically going to pay that premium to take care of their pups or other pets. All right, let's move on to number 2. Another temporary side hustle you can take on is bartending. So bartending, if you are into alcohol and making drinks, it can actually be a fun social side hustle. So for me, this was like 15 years ago, so a long time ago. I personally took a 1-week bartending class. It cost a few $100s, and then I ended up bartending a few parties while I was in grad school, and I made a few $100s each gig. So I think one gig I had paid for the fees of taking the class. Now, I didn't end up becoming a bartender or doing more bartending jobs because I ended up getting another job at a law firm, so I switched gears completely. But I will say it was a fun class to take, and there was definitely a path for me to make some good side income had I continued that and took it on, and it is just a fun skill to have. So let's talk through the scorecard. In terms of skills, I would rank this more as intermediate or hard. Sometimes getting hired as a bartender might require you to know how to make cocktails and how to pour before you get the job, as opposed to them training you on the job. But I'm sure there are beginner opportunities as well. And if you're starting with completely no experience at all, then you can consider taking a short bartending course like I did. In terms of equipment, I would say easy. Most venues that you're gonna bartend at provide the necessary tools, whether that's shakers, glassware, etc. If it's a private gig, you might need to supply some equipment, but typically it's minimal, and typically private parties will have supplies as well, and they just need you to show up and make the drinks. All right, next on the scorecard, time required for bartending. I'll put this as intermediate again, similarly because you are trading time for money. Plus, the shifts can be long, especially during evenings and weekends and holidays, just depending on what environment you're bartending at. Private events, on the other hand, might have more irregular hours, so it does help if you have flexibility when it comes to time. In terms of energy required, similar to the dog walking, I'll put this as intermediate and hard, mainly because it requires standing up for long periods of time, staying active, and of course, talking to people and being friendly with people can be draining. But I'm going to go ahead and say that only choose this side hustle if you like those things. If it actually energizes you to be around people and to talk to people, then this might be a good side hustle for you. In terms of investment to get started, I'm going to go ahead and say this is easy to intermediate on the scorecard. I think there are minimal upfront costs. A bartending course or certification typically costs anywhere from $100 to $500. And like I said, in my experience doing this for the short amount of time that I did bartending, my first gig paid for the training, and so anything after that would have been profit. And finally, on the scorecard, in terms of getting started, I would say intermediate. Breaking into this industry can be challenging without a ton of experience, so you might need to start as a barback or a server before you can go into bartending, but that's not to say someone might just take a chance on you and hire you regardless of how much experience you have. Oftentimes, networking and getting a referral can help you get your first gig. And the one thing I'll point out, which I forgot to mention earlier in terms of taking a class, check with your state to see what is required. Sometimes there are requirements to be certified before you can bartend in certain places. So make sure you know what those requirements are in your location before you choose this as a side hustle. So how much can you make from bartending? Again, this is based on my limited experience and a little bit of Googling, but it's gonna be highly variable. How much you make bartending really depends on the venue, your location, your level of expertise, and just how nice people are feeling that night, depending on how much they want to tip you. So when I looked it up, I saw that the base hourly rate can be around $15 to $20 an hour. And again, that depends on the state you're in and the venue. But on top of that, tips can be anywhere from $100 to a couple $100 per shift, depending on the location and the crowd. So if you can find a place that lets you bartend part-time for just 1 or 2 shifts per week, then you can definitely make upwards of an extra $1,000 per month, if not more. All right, quick sidebar before we hit the next 3 side hustles on the list. For those new here, hello, my name is Lissa Prudencio. I'm an accredited financial counselor, and if you are enjoying this video so far, please make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. I appreciate it. Let's jump back into those next 3 temporary side hustles that you can take on. Number 3, virtual assisting. So becoming a virtual assistant. This is a great option for people who want a flexible remote way to make money. I personally have not been a virtual assistant before, but I've been an assistant before, and I have hired virtual assistants. I currently have 2 that work for me. Being a virtual assistant, or what's called a VA, is a really good side hustle in my opinion because it also has a low barrier to entry. Most people already have the skills to be one, right? We're in the digital age. Most of us know how to work a calendar and email and know how to communicate, use Google Docs, use Microsoft Word. These are skills that most people already have, and they're kind of like the base skills you need to be an assistant for someone. I also like the idea of being a virtual assistant in terms of opportunity because there are more and more businesses and entrepreneurs who need VAs these days for remote assistance. Especially since the pandemic, a lot of people are working remotely and they are also hiring remotely as well. So let's jump into that scorecard. In terms of skills, I would say easy to intermediate. Many VA roles require basic skills, like I mentioned earlier. So think email management, organization, common workspace tools, Google, Microsoft Office. But some can also require more advanced tasks like social media management, graphic design, bookkeeping, copywriting. So while some of these VA jobs might require more skills, that also means they pay more. Next on the scorecard, equipment required to get started, easy. You only need a computer typically and internet access, but I would guess since you're watching this video, you already have that. Time required, I would say intermediate. Hours are going to depend on the client's needs, but I will say that I know that many VAs work part-time or in flexible time blocks. For me personally, I assign tasks and I don't need to be online the same time as my VAs. I just assign tasks, I put due dates, and they can figure out when is best for them to complete those tasks. All right, energy required to be a VA. I'd say easy to intermediate, maybe easier than the first two on this list. VA work is less physically demanding than other side hustles, but I will say it requires focus, it requires organization, it requires communication skills. The other thing is, I don't know what's going on with me, but lately my eyes have been more strained on my computer. So if you're already on a computer all day, every day for your job, and this is more time on the computer, it could strain you physically, so just look out for that. But other than that, I think it's very manageable, especially because we're talking about temporary side hustles. We're talking a month, a couple months, maybe a year. But after that, you don't have to do this grind, right? You are just doing this for a temporary amount of time. Financial investment, I'd say easy. There's really no upfront cost if you already have a computer and you already have the internet. Something optional that you can consider is to upskill, to learn new skills, and sometimes that might require taking an online course. I'm a very big proponent of investing in yourself. So even if it means you pay a little bit of money to take a course on marketing or project management, I think that pays itself back so much more easily than like a college degree. But story for another day. All right, on the scorecard, getting started, I would say intermediate. When you're first starting, finding clients can take some effort. There are ways to get started on platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, or you can tap into your personal network, but it's really about just finding those clients that are going to trust that you can deliver what they need. And then from there, as soon as you build up experience, it shouldn't be too hard to get more and more clients. All right, how much can you make from being a virtual assistant? It's gonna vary based on your skill level, your location, the type of work that you do. Remember earlier I said the more skills you have, like if you can help them with their social media as well as everything else, then you should ask for more pay. I would say that if you're doing basic administrative tasks, this can be anywhere from $15 to $25 an hour. You can go higher to $30 an hour to $50 an hour if you're doing additional things like, for example, social media management. And so, as you can see, depending on how many hours you can lock in and how big of a client base you want to have, it's really flexible, but I think you can definitely work towards $800 to $1,000 a month, by working 5 to 10 hours a week. All right, we are on to the last two on the list. Number 4, another temporary side hustle, tutoring. Tutoring or teaching, these are flexible ways to make extra cash, and I also think they can be rewarding, especially if you enjoy sharing your knowledge, you like helping others learn, you like to see other people improve their own knowledge. So I used to tutor back when I was in college. I had like 3 different part-time jobs, so I guess you could call it a side hustle. And currently I'm a financial counselor, so I feel like part of what I do is also tutoring and teaching about money. But I think it is a great side hustle option because it's gonna leverage skills that you already have. Whether you have academic knowledge, whether you have a professional expertise, whether you are fluent in another language. There are opportunities to find ways to tutor and teach and get paid for it. So let's go through the scorecard. Skills, easy to intermediate. I would say easy if you are going to tutor in basic subjects like math or reading or English, if you're teaching people who are younger, who you definitely know more than. But it can also range to more intermediate depending on the types of subjects you're teaching, right? Like even if you tutor high school kids and you are tutoring something like chemistry or calculus. I don't remember calculus at all, so that might be a little bit harder, but you can also find specialized skills. Test prep is an area where there are tutors all over the place in every type of exam you can think of. SATs, GREs, but even for me, I recently took my CFP exam, which is to be a certified financial planner, and I almost hired a tutor. I took an exam prep course, but I was very, very close to hiring a tutor, and I know many, many people did. So there are lots of opportunities to be a tutor if you can just find an area to specialize in. Equipment, I'd say easy. A lot of times you can tutor online. So if you have a computer with a camera and a stable internet connection, then all you really need is Zoom or Google Meet. Or if you do it through a tutoring service, there might be built-in tools with that. If you're going to do in-person tutoring, that might require you getting some simple supplies like notebooks, flashcards, a mini whiteboard, and all of those things are typically low cost. Time required, I'd say intermediate. One of the hardest parts with this particular side hustle is you have to coordinate schedules with whoever you're tutoring. And then even though sessions might last 1 hour or 2 hours, you also probably need time for prep. So that's planning your lesson, reviewing materials, and those types of things. But don't worry, you bake that into your price, right? The more prep you have to do for specific topics, you can try to bake that into your price and make sure you are getting paid for the value you're providing. All right, energy. I'd say easy to intermediate. So teaching someone is going to require some patience and some focus, especially with younger students or students who are just struggling to learn. So I wouldn't say this is physically demanding, but it can be mentally tiring, especially if you're handling back-to-back-to-back sessions or if you are tutoring in more challenging topics. But typically when people tutor, they are tutoring in subjects that they love or know a lot about. So I wouldn't say it's too intensive. It just depends on what you're tutoring. In terms of upfront investment, I'd say this is pretty easy. There aren't really major upfront costs if you have a computer and if you have the internet. Now, if you are gonna tutor in areas like test prep, like I mentioned earlier, you might need to invest in materials like the latest test prep books for the current year. Or you can also invest money into a tutoring or teaching certification, not so much because it's required, but because it can increase your credibility and maybe help you get clients a lot easier. In terms of getting started, this one I'd put at intermediate. I think there are tons of online platforms these days that you can sign up for that will connect you to students more quickly, but obviously they will take a cut of your earnings. And the thing is, if you prefer in-person work and you're not going to go through another company, directly finding your own tutoring clients might be difficult at first, at least until you build a reputation and you're better known. If it helps, I would say to specialize in really, really high demand areas like SAT prep or English as a second language if you're able to tutor in those subjects. So how much can you make? Similar to all the other side hustles, I'm kind of annoyed now that I put this section in this video because it's really going to vary. I'm hoping that sharing these estimates at least gives you some ideas, even though it might vary based on your location and your geography and your skill level. So general tutoring can be $15 to $25 an hour for like elementary school or high school subjects. For more specialized tutoring, $30 to $75 an hour. And for all of these, it's going to depend. If you find some really rich parents that trust you to tutor their kids, they might pay you more than this. So it's really finding the clientele that's going to be the hardest. But if you can find a subject that's very specialized that you love teaching and love tutoring, just start marketing yourself. All right, last on the list, number 5, temporary side hustle number 5, creating digital templates and products. So, creating and selling digital templates or products is a creative and a scalable way that you can make extra income. And the side hustle works because it leverages your design skills or your organizational skills or expertise that you already have in a subject. I would even pair this with the tutoring side hustle because even though creating digital templates and worksheets or spreadsheets or whatever it is might take some upfront work, it's actually great because you do have the potential to make more with this in the future with little added effort. So I have an extra pro tip for this one. Off the bat, you might be like,
what could I possibly create that is not already out there, that people will actually be willing to buy, and that people can't do themselves on Canva or some other AI tool?
You're right, there is so much out there these days. There's a lot of competition out there selling the same things. One, do it anyway, because you might be able to package something a lot better than someone else. But another area, this is the pro tip, is think about things you might be able to create and sell to small business owners that will allow them to white label it. For example, You can create planners or worksheets or budget templates or social media graphics that they can end up branding as their own by simply purchasing the templates from you or a license from you. Small business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, they might not have the staff to do this for them, and they don't have the time to do it either. So anything you can do to sell to a business to make their lives easier, they might be willing to buy. All right, let's talk through this final scorecard in this video for creating digital products and templates. In terms of skills, I will say easy to intermediate. If you're creating simple templates, like all you really need is Canva or Google Docs, and that'll get you started. Now, if you want to do more complex designs or spreadsheets, then that might take more skills, and you can do more if you have specialized skills like Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. But honestly, I don't think you need those to start making templates. You really just need like what's in here. Equipment to get started, I'd say easy. Computer, that's all you need. Time required, I'd say easy to intermediate, but mostly easy. There is upfront time needed to brainstorm what you're going to create and to create the products themselves. And you also probably need to spend a little bit of time learning how to market them and actually get them in front of people. But once your templates are created and listed, and if you can create some funnels to sell them, then this side hustle is actually going to have minimal time and maintenance later on. So energy, I would also say easy. The work is creative, but it's not physically demanding. And again, after you set it up, all you're going to be spending your energy on later on is marketing, maybe some customer support, but all of that should be pretty manageable. Financial investment, I'd say easy. The initial costs are low or none if you use Canva or Google Suite or something like that. Now you might want to invest in like a digital storefront, like somewhere you can sell your items. Like you can do Etsy or something like that, but you can also create your own website. But typically, if you can get a good website going and you're good at marketing, then your sales will pay for any software that you end up using. All right, and finally, in terms of getting started, I would put this as intermediate. And that's mainly because I think you have to do some research to figure out what's trending in digital products. And more importantly, the marketing part of it is going to be a little harder than another side hustle like, dog walking in your neighborhood. In terms of earnings, how much can you make? This is really just a crapshoot, right? Some people sell templates for $5. Other people sell them for $95. So it's going to depend on what you create and who you market to. So here's an example. Think about teachers or tutors or coaches. If you can create a package for them to use with their clients that have worksheets, question prompts, and things like that, and you allow them to label those with their own brand, you're just selling the template or selling a license to use it, I think you'll be able to get more business from other businesses as opposed to trying to market to individual consumers. All right, that is the list. Remember, quick reminder to think about these side hustles as temporary. Whatever income you make from them, if you can use that extra income towards your financial foundations, emergency fund, paying off debt, saving, investing, then you definitely will reach financial security a lot sooner. All right, until next time, peace out.